Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Mike Lowe, and we are in NBA 2K24. It's a day before release, and I'm here to give you my top 5 improvements that I've noticed in NBA 2K24 so far. Now, a bit of a disclaimer. Some of you may know, but I don't play some of the most popular modes in this game. I don't play a lot of my career. I don't really mess around in the park too much. So if you're looking for kind of the top list or the top improvements and things like that for those modes, there are other videos out there. So please check out those other content creators. But I like to be upfront with you ahead of time. I'm more focused on things like MyNBA. I'm more focused on looking at some of the different era elements and really a lot of attention to detail things like, say, the draft class creation and how accurate are those things kind of coming out and how do they match up with the real life rosters that we get out of the box and just some things like that. So I'm here to give you my top 5. These are the things I've noticed so far in just day 1 of gameplay. There will probably be more videos on that channel. Be looking for those. I've already started working on my top 5 needs and maybe room for improvement areas for the game, but we'll get into that in another video. For now, it's the top 5 of NBA 2K24. Now, the first one on my list might not be something you're expecting, and you're seeing here a sped up, really just run through of the settings. And such a small thing to start with, but they've really simplified their settings pages. If you remember, you used to have to page through like multiple pages of settings, and it just got a little bit cumbersome. And so they've cleaned that up a lot, where you're only really in like 1 or 2 different pages, whether it's controller settings or just kind of general gameplay, coach settings, that kind of thing. And I really like it. Granted, it still might be the exact same amount of information, but it just seems to flow a little bit better. And again, super small thing, but this first point is all about just cleaning things up. They have such a strong game that 2K is at a huge advantage that they can spend time doing little things like this, and that's where I wanted to start. But it's more than just the settings. We are seeing some other little improvements too, such as the draft classes. Now, this is going to be part of my improvement area video too. The draft classes are not perfect, but what I do like seeing this year is that it does seem more closely lined up with the rookie class in real life. So you have badge totals and things like that matching up. The overalls were always pretty good compared to the real life roster, but it seemed like the real life rookies in years past in 2K were very inflated when it came to the number of badges. But you can see here, whether it's Wembayama or anybody else, that the number of badges you're seeing in the generated classes are now matching. And I guess more importantly, the default roster rookies are matching the draft classes more accurately. Number 4 on my list is one that we were expecting, I think, with NBA 2K24, and that's a new era called the LeBron era. So this one is going to start in 2010. This is right around when LeBron had the decision, when he went to Miami and kind of established the big 3 down there with the Heatles. And it's a really, really cool era. This was something that we talked a lot about with last year's game when I was doing videos introducing eras. And it was the most common question I would get outside of, hey, this isn't working in my game, where can I find this? Which I'll answer really quick because I will probably get a ton of questions on that as well. Eras, as far as I know, is still only on PS5, Xbox One, whatever the new one's called. I don't have it. But it's not on like the older generation. So if you have a PS4 or something like that, it's not going to be there as far as I know. That's certainly how it was with NBA 2K23. So now that we have that out of the way, the other question I would always get was, oh my gosh, we need a LeBron era in 2010. And here we go. This is what we have. And it's really, really cool. Again, it's not perfect. You're still going to see players that aren't real. You're going to see kind of a roster that's not 100% accurate across the NBA. And my guess is that just has to do a lot with licensing and things like this. Player, having permission to use the player's likeliness and things like that. So you can still download custom rosters and load these in. That's one of the things I love about what they've done with the eras is you can actually edit the rosters outside of MyNBA, and then you could kind of get your roster set up and then start with that custom roster if you wanted to. And you could do the same thing with the draft classes. So, but outside of that, the mode is exactly the same. I don't think that's a bad thing. But again, it's just, you're going to see a lot of the same stuff here. Now, I know there's some visuals that have changed with these different eras, especially the older ones where you're going to see like more newspaper stuff. Like obviously they're not going to be showing like Twitter feeds and stuff like that. And I think that's pretty cool. Of course, here's the default draft class you get in 2011. So it's the Kawhi Leonard draft class. And even that, as you scroll down, eventually you would see some players that aren't real and things like that. But again, there's custom draft classes out there. That's always going to be a challenge, I think, when you're playing in these older eras, is that you're going to have to kind of make some concessions somewhere where things aren't always going to be perfect. So if you're a control freak, you're either going to have to just live with that, or B, really put some time into either finding solutions that the community has made or even adjusting your own. But everything works the same. That you have the mentor set up and all of that. And this seems to actually be working a little bit better. This is always something I felt like a little bit like I was cheating by using the mentor system. The CPU teams do seem to be using this, at least on default, when you just kind of load in. Like I see mentors being assigned automatically. And that was happening before. It's still not perfect because I'm still seeing like some obvious, like especially when I was in the more like actual modern era, I would see just some, I guess, mentorships that just didn't make perfect sense, but at least they're there. Obviously, these are being assigned somehow through the coding in the game. So there must be some logic behind why certain mentors are being assigned to certain mentees. It looked a little confusing at places to me, but again, there has to be a reason for it. And without digging too deep into it, at least they're there. At least the CPU teams are using it. So it's not going to be like some sort of advantage for you. But love seeing the era, to kind of get back to the point number 4 here. Love that they've added to this, and they haven't gone crazy. They didn't add 3 new ones or anything like this. I'm really excited to see where this mode goes in the future because I know it's really, really popular. And I think we're going to start to see some even older eras. Like imagine like a Wilt Chamberlain era. I think we're going to see an era start. I think we're going to see this next year, by the way. I think we're going to see an expansion era where you literally start day one in an expansion team. And so whatever that might be, whether that's like say the Bobcats or something, or Toronto, Vancouver, or whatever it is, you can actually pick. And maybe that's what they do. Maybe they do a few different expansions. What about one of the bigger expansions from like the 60s or 70s or something like that? I mean, some really, really cool things. I'm really curious if they would ever consider doing like a future era as well. Imagine that, where we have a 2030 or a 2040 even, where you're now seeing some of the, Wembayama, like the end of his career or something like this. And just what does it look like? Of course, they would be fictional, but you'd have this kind of roster that you could play around with and do even a future era. I think that could be really cool. Maybe there's teams from Europe that are now in the league and something like that. So I think there's a lot of potential for this mode. I know it's super, super popular, but as you see me just kind of clicking through the menus here, it's MyNBA. There's nothing really different. They've updated a few of the aesthetics, again, with some of the older eras not having Twitter, as I mentioned, but everything's going to work the same here. But I really like this. This definitely made my list. I like that they're continuing to build on this, and they had such a good foundation built last year. I just think it's really, really cool that we're seeing more My Era stuff. So really cool to see the LeBron one. Number 3 on the list is the My WNBA. It's been in the game before. It's not anything new, but I just love that this is here and it's still receiving attention. It's still receiving updates, and it's not just a kind of a throw-in mode. Like for instance, and I loved the Negro League mode in MLB The Show. It's super cool, but it's more just like a list of activities. It's like a checklist more than it is like an actual full-on franchise mode. And so it's worth calling this out still, that this is here. It wasn't a one-off thing, and it's a fully functional MyNBA. I think it's awesome. And I'm actually considering running with this year as opposed to a traditional MyNBA because the seasons are shorter. I like playing every game, and I certainly don't have time to always play 82 games in a season. The WNBA season, I think, is 36 games. And so it's much more manageable. But this is a full-on, fully functional My WNBA mode. Everything is here that you'd see in the traditional MyNBA mode. And I just think that's super, super cool. Now, again, was this like something that was originally copied over as a base from MyNBA? Of course it was. But still, the attention, the detail is here. And it's just really neat. I like to, you can still add in expansion teams. You get 2 expansion slots, which you're going to see here shortly. So you could really come up with like your own little unique thing. One area that I do wish you could do is I wish you could run these 2 leagues concurrently. I wish you could run an NBA and a MyNBA or a WNBA together so that maybe you could start in the WNBA as a general manager or something like this. And this is kind of a general comment for all of MyNBA. I do wish they would allow us more out of the box to create certain rules, whether that was you wanted to be the actual team president or team governor, as they call it here, like the owner of the team. You wanted to be a general manager, maybe just a coach, and certainly a player. They have it set up well just to be a player in one of these leagues. but I really wish they would give us that opportunity to pick some different roles, and it was seamless and it was done for us where I could just be the general manager. I am completely blocked out of things like setting, say, lineups, but if I wanted that sort of control, I can. Now, I know there's a ton of settings we can go in and do this, but it's a little bit cumbersome, especially for someone who's not used to MyNBA or WNBA in this case. And that's kind of one of the ideas, right? Is we want to try to bring more people back into these modes. These are the modes that launched sports games. So whether you're new to these games or not, and maybe you've only been playing My Team and things like this, it's all of that came from franchise modes or MyNBA or whatever it is. And so I really want to see that connection back, because at the end of the day, what do we watch on Saturdays and Sundays? Or what do we watch on like Thursday night primetime? We watch the actual leagues. We don't watch people playing in tournaments for money. That stuff's on TV too. But the idea is, it seems like all of these game companies, there's like this disconnect where it's like, oh, people don't want this. They just want this. But the proof's in the pudding. What do people watch? What do they watch in real life? It's these leagues. It's the actual leagues. It's the playoffs and things like this. And so drawing that sort of thing back in, and I've mentioned this on many videos before as we continue to look at the MyNBA here for the I should say the MyWNBA, it's that there is pull for this sort of thing. We had these sort of things before where franchise modes have started off. And to me, bring in microtransaction. Trust me, it's not that I want to pay for extra things like an expansion team or whatever it is, but if we can do this, where like each season, maybe there's a fee to carry over the next season or something like this. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it would be, because how would that bring in more people? But there's a route for this sort of thing. I truly believe it. I don't have all the answers here. I'm just going to rattle off in the next minute or so, but there are opportunities for it. And to me, I think the best way to start it is we have like that 2K league, and it's popular. But to me, start a 2K MyNBA, the official one. Have one, and then have a WNBA as well, where someone like you or me could be the general manager, or we could be the coach, and maybe I'm hiring you to be the coach, and I don't know, you're not doing a great job. Maybe I end up firing you. But there is one season, and that one carries over year to year or something like this, where I don't know, we could even use fictional players where it's other people, because you're kind of combining all of this together. And so again, I know some of that already is with the 2K league, but this would be a little bit different to be set up more like an actual MyNBA or a WNBA. So as we're continuing to see here, fully functional. I love that this is here. That's why it's still on my list. It's not necessarily that it's new, but I just love that this is a thing that they're continuing to build on. And if you don't believe there's a movement for this sort of stuff, women's sports and the growth of women's sports, I mean, just look at that Nebraska volleyball game. We had 90,000 people. There is an appetite for this stuff. It deserves this sort of attention. And I love that 2K is the first team to really do this. NHL's got a little bit of it with like the Olympic team or whatever it was, but this is awesome. Super excited. And what's really cool is that this mode carries over into so many different things. You can use the women's teams or even just like the women characters here as your My player. You can use it to it's across the entire game, and I just think it's awesome. It's why it made my list still. Love seeing the WNBA stuff. Number 2 on my list is something we were just talking about a little bit, and that is bringing more people into MyNBA with this new MyNBA Lite feature. And so it's just like it sounds. It's a quicker, more streamlined way to get into your MyNBA. So you jump in, you're going to pick your team, you're going to load up, say, a draft class, and just kind of some of the basics that you need to get going. And they get you into this mode, which is key, because people, at the root of it, we are a people of storytelling. This goes back to like cavemen times when we'd sit around and around a fire and tell stories. And this is across cultures all across the world. We are storytelling people, and we have been for thousands of years. And so these elements, it's very wise to try and bring people into these elements. And again, this has been happening for decades in gaming, but the idea is we are finding ways, and NBA 2K does a great job of this, by bringing people in. So it's MyNBA Lite. It's like some of the updates they've given us even to their online league modes, which we're going to see here in a little bit. But they're just making it easier for whether you're a commissioner of your own league or for an online league. They're making it easier. They're making it more streamlined so that we get people into the franchise quicker. You get into your games, because it's just like reading a book. When you pick up a book, at first you're like, I don't really know. Suddenly at the end of the first chapter, maybe the second chapter, you're like, oh, this is really good. This is really interesting. But it's very rare where you just pick up a book and you're immediately interested in it, right? And so it's kind of that same thing here. The quicker we can get people into this, the more they're going to enjoy it. And we get these little details like a big board. We get these details in like the scouting, the hiring of your staff. This is creating that world. And if you don't think that stuff's real when it comes to sports game, look at a game like Football Manager. That's a very, very popular soccer for you Americans simulator. It's one of the most popular games in the world, and it's one of the most addicting sports games in the world. And so there's a lot of those elements there that you're getting. So things like player mentorship, which you're seeing, and so it's just really, really cool. I really, really like that they've created this, because again, it's a foundation. Is it perfect? No. Is it something I'll use? Probably not. But that's not geared for someone like me. It's geared for someone who doesn't really play a lot of franchise. So I love that they're bringing more people into franchise / MyNBA. I think it's awesome. I love that they're also helping out online commissioners for your online league, say, which you're going to see here in just a second. But they've added some screens for that to make those things easier. And I just love it. So huge props for bringing people into MyNBA. Number one for me, and it's not even close, is Pro Play, which is the mimicking of real life movement and motion of players in the NBA. And this goes far beyond, say, signature styles or even other games like MLB The Show when we talk about batting stances or home run celebrations. This is a whole new level that 2K is bringing to the sports gaming world. And it's awesome. And that's why it's number one on my list. And it's also the reason why we need to push back against people who say, oh, this seems like the same game. I'm not seeing it really. That's crazy, because NBA 2K is already in such a good place that they are able to spend time in this. They don't have to be like Madden, where they have to spend the first 2 months of their development cycle, where they should be working on Madden 25, but they're having to fix draft classes and all this other stuff. This game, while it's not perfect, is in such a good place that they're able to keep pushing the envelope, even though, by the way, they have no one else pushing them with NBA games. So it's a huge testament to 2K. This feature is awesome, and it's really just the start, I think. I think we're going to see more and more of this happening. So that's my top 5 list. I'm loving NBA 2K24, but let me know what you think in the comments. Give this video a like, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, definitely do it. We are always covering things like MyNBA franchise modes and stuff like that. I'm also on Twitter at MikeLow47. I appreciate you all checking out the video. And yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know how you're enjoying the game. I'm super excited. I got more content coming your way with NBA 2K24. But that's my top 5 list. See you next time.